So start back with you, Marty. What most challenging press box or play-by-play setup that you can ever remember? And you did, as you said, high school games and Legion, and I'm sure there were.
I did a high school football game in Mooresville on top of the press box, seated at a card table. And I worked with a guy that, I know there's some people old enough in this room right now to remember Al Klutz. And Al and I worked together. I did a Legion baseball game sitting at a card table behind the backstop. Obviously, I've lived in the lap of luxury for the last 37 years, but I never forgot those circumstances, and it all goes into having great memories of your craft and the things that you were willing to do then, just to be able to broadcast a football game or be able to broadcast a basketball game. I did Catawba College games in the gym at this high school at a card table in the end zone. At that time, Catawba did not have a gym to play in. They played all their games when Dwight Durante was the star of this team, and Garland Davis and guys like that. And I did it at a card table in the end zone at that time, Boyden High School. So I've had some interesting situations confronted for me to do ball games, and like I say, you do whatever you have to do them.
Stan, how about you? I know RFK Stadium last year at the Eagle Bank Bowl, I was in the booth with you guys. We're just a little bit away from the playing field.
Yeah, that was interesting. We were pretty much in the end zone at that bowl game last year, and Navy runs a crazy offensive attack, an option attack, and we couldn't tell if the midshipmen were gaining two or losing two. When you're calling the play-by-play, that's you're handicapped. That's tough to do. I remember doing a game when I was at Carson Newman College 20 plus years ago at Franklin, Indiana. And we went into what we thought was the press box. Well, it was the press box, but it wasn't where we were going to be to call the game. They had this little bitty ladder that went up to the roof of the press box, and then they had this little hatch, if you will, that opened up, and you just had to do whatever you could do to get, because the ladder stopped at a certain point. So I had to get my arms up above and shove myself up. And there was, card table would have been great to have at that point. There was this little, looks like the little deal your dad put together for you when you sold lemonade out on the street when you were a kid, this little configuration of, I don't know, balsa wood or something that we were on. And what was even more challenging than that was this cable that came up and had these two bare wires on it. That was our phone line. And you guys have probably all been there before. I know Howard has. And so we had to get a phone guy, and he helped us get those two wires into our stuff, and it worked. But those are the places you look back on now. We're in these ultra modern facilities now, and we really probably take them for granted. But you look back on those days when it was a challenge just to get on the air, and once you did, you were good to go. So.
Mick?
Well, sometimes you don't get on the air. I remember, and all of us could tell stories about doing this. In fact, we can continue this down at Applebee's, and we'll be here till about 10 o'clock at night to get all the stories told. But I remember doing a game in Charleston, a baseball game, and the phone line wasn't in the press box. There was no phone line. So I go across the street, and there's a payphone, and I pay this kid $25 to bring me the end of inning summaries, and I start to recreate the game from standing up at a payphone across the street with cars whizzing by. This guy walks up to me in about the third inning, and he starts pacing around, and I can tell he's getting kind of agitated. He's looking at his watch. He's feeling in his pocket. He's got his quarter. He wants to make a phone call. So I looked at him, and I said, "I'm going to be a while." He said, "About how long?" I said, "About 2 hours and 45 minutes. I was broadcasting Pop Warner. My boss hired me in Belmont named Eb Gant, 400-pound Eb Gant with about 3 chins, this big basso profundo voice, and he hired me when I was right out of college at UNC because Mr. Gant had gotten too heavy to climb up the press box stairs. He had done the games on WCGC in Belmont. I said, "Mr. Gant, I want to do play-by-play." He said, "Son, I don't care if 2 midgets are having a fist fight in the parking lot of McDonald's. If you can get a sponsor, you can broadcast the play-by-play." So that's all I needed to hear. I was broadcasting Pop Warner football, McAdenville versus Far Yarns, and it starts raining. And back then, I was trying to be like Marty Brenneman, Howard Platt, some of the legends in the game, and I had about a magic marker set where I was real proud of my spotter boards, all different colors. It starts to rain, and all the colors start to run. And these little joders only have numbers on one side they only have numbers on the front, and all of them, the tallest one's about 2.5 feet tall. But I'm doing the play-by-play, and I'm saying, little Timmy Thompson around the left end, and this woman, this big, robust woman, whops me over the head with a rolled-up magazine. My headphones go flying off. I put my headphones back on, and I look back up at her, and she's staring down at me, this straight razor-toting woman, and she goes, "You idiot, that's not Timmy Thompson, that's Jimmy Johnson, that's my son." So I'm going, we got kind of a surly crowd out here at Far Yarns. But yeah, it does get, and the last thing I want to tell you is at the University of Cincinnati, Marty, you ever go to UC? They had this, I'm sure they have a nice facility now, but this little baseball stadium that reminded me of a maximum security prison. I think I was sitting on chain link. Somehow or another they made a chair out of chain link for me. And the concession stand is closed, and all they have is a lady selling hot chocolate and potato chips. So I did 2 3-hour games. I was there for 7 hours, and all I ate for 7 hours was potato chips and hot chocolate. Maybe the worst I've ever felt as an adult.
You should have called me. I'd have helped you out.
Howard?
There's too many of my incidents to mention probably, but I'll try to remember a few. The latest one was just a few years ago at the State American Legion tournament in Garner, where they were going through a heat wave of about 100 degrees. And the type of facility that they had for us was a scaffold that you had to get your equipment up and climb up with just no roof or anything. It was like a little cloth heading in front, on top of us. The wind was blowing, it started raining, and it starts messing up everything we've got, and we're roasting to death. Now, they had a press box, but the American Legion people were using that, and that had air conditioning and everything, but they had label on the press box, and then on the sign below it, no media allowed. We had another situation one time when I was back in Culpeper working color for football, and it was 20 degrees, the wind was blowing 40 miles an hour, and we're on top of a roof climbing an icy fire escape with our equipment. And the game is coming to an end. It's about 20-0. There's 20 seconds left. They're putting in guys with numbers that we don't have on our roster, and the team that's trailing 20-0 calls a timeout. And just numerous incidents like that. Coach Farabee, we were doing a Legion game at East Mecklenburg, and remember the bug incident with Jabba Chamberlain? Well, we were on top of a dugout, and we got assaulted by a lot more bugs that night than Jabba Chamberlain ever thought. And that's just some of the examples. I can't go through all of them, but it's been quite an interesting experience. When you're on the level that I'm on, you run into those sort of things.
Now, you sure that sign said no media allowed, or was it no working media allowed?
Well, they had no media allowed as a written press thing. Yeah, it seemed like that, but that's the way things were working at that time.